Okay, it is day 320 off the grid, and I just wanted to show something that I'm about to install that I've actually been working on the previous couple of days before today's, so it's not something I've actually done today, but it is something I'm going to install today. But the last couple of days I've only done text-based blogs about the stuff I've been doing, so I kind of really wanted to show the inside of this before I install it. This is my relay-based on-off charge controller that I'll be using in Shed B to control the flow of excess power from Shed A into charging the batteries in Shed B. Okay, we'll leave it at that for that kind of explanation because I've talked about all that stuff before. I just wanted to show specifically what's inside this. It's the same stuff I had in the clip leads in my other videos, but now it's installed neatly into here, or maybe not so neatly depending on how you look at it. But I think we can show the circuit. I don't think I even need to draw a schematic because this is really simple. I can point it out. Okay, here is a positive feed from the battery bank. That runs through this red wire, through which is the normally closed switches of the relay, and out this blue wire. And this is where one would connect the main relay to these contacts here. Well, the screws are on the side there, but these contacts here is where the main relay would be connected that actually controls the current. So this is the sensing relay, and the other one is the actual controlling, that actually switches the current. Okay. Right, so that's one part of it. The return of that relay is on this terminal, and it goes through that little white wire under there, and it's connected to this middle terminal here. More about that in a second. Now, another feed from the battery bank comes via this old, what was it, BY 126, there we go, a BY126 rectifier diode. That's actually just like an ancient equivalent of a 1N4001 or something. It's only rated to about an amp despite its rather large physical size. I just kind of used it just for the coolness of using vintage components, and it does have a slightly bigger characteristic voltage. So it goes through that, then it goes through a 15 volt Zener diode down there, and then that connects to this other vintage component, which is a 5 volt Zener diode of a fairly high wattage. I don't know how much, and I don't want to find out how much by destroying it because it's a vintage component. Oh, bumblebee. I don't get so many bumblebees in here. Anyway, so that path goes through there to there, and then it's connected to the coil of the relay right here. The return of the coil is through this white wire here to this other terminal. Okay, now I should point out that these two terminals here are actually currently strapped together with this little black link here, so they are essentially the same terminal. So we'll leave it at that. I said that, but we'll leave it at that for the moment. I think we don't want to get confused here. So we've got two paths then. We've got the one that's switched to the relay, and we've got the one through these Zener diodes to the coil. So basically what happens is that these Zener diodes lower the voltage that the relay is getting so that the relay will only turn on when the voltage at the input reaches a certain level. And for these components and this relay, that happens to be around about 27 volts, which is where I want this controller to switch off the power. And then when the voltage drops to just slightly under 26, it will turn back on again. Now, I found that a 20 volt circuit is kind of the magic voltage to make this kind of thing work really well, because you get the right ratio of resistance in the relay coil versus the voltage you're going to drop with Zener diodes, and also the overall voltage in relation to the kind of the knee voltage of the Zeners. It just seems to work really well at 24 volts. I'm sure it would work pretty well at higher voltages, but it might be more difficult to get this to work on a 12 volt circuit. You'd have to use a 6 volt relay for a start. But this is a 24 volt circuit and it works just fine. You need the capacitor across the coil to give you, what this basically gives you, it's not really so much for filtering, it's for a slight time delay, so that when it gets to that switch off voltage, it hangs on for just a few moments longer to make sure it's really there, because otherwise you would get this relay chattering. In my original mock-up, I had a big 13,000 Mickey unit, which I thought was vastly overkill, but it's what I had and it worked. Now I've gone down to a 3,300 Mickey unit, so hopefully that's enough. In my dry testing, I've found it gives about 2 or 3 seconds of delay before the relay will switch. So that should be okay. Wow, this bee's getting aggravated. Yeah, so that's basically the circuit. There's an LED here, and it's wired through this resistor just across the relay coil. And that blocking diode is there as a suppression of the reverse transients from the big relay. That's only really necessary to save the LED. None of these other components in the circuit would be bothered by that reverse impulse. So only really, if I'd used a bulb like I had in the mock-up, then wouldn't even need that diode. This one does not need one because the current on this relay's coil builds up slowly and diminishes slowly, so it will never produce that high back EMF. So, and any it did produce could be taken out by this capacitor anyway, to a degree. So that's the circuit, and I'm going to go and install it in the shed. Also, one more thing at this point, I could say it in the next video, but I'll say it now. I don't particularly recommend an on-off style controller like this as a primary charge controller, because your battery voltage is just going to be bouncing between the 2 points constantly. The relay is just going to be clicking on and off, forming regulation, which is probably not that great for the relay, and it's not really that great for the batteries. And the point it charges them to is really kind of random, because it'll just be somewhere in between the 2 thresholds that the circuit operates in. But they're ideal as a supplementary charge controller that's bringing in some extra power, because what it means is that when the batteries charge up to a certain level, this will cut out, and it won't immediately cut in because the main charge controllers on the circuit are continuing to charge the battery, and then they will just take over and top it off in the way that they do. So yeah, an on-off controller like this, whether it's done with a relay like I've done it, or whether it's done solid state, is ideal as a supplement. In fact, it may even be advantageous as a supplementary power input to charging the batteries, rather than having yet another PWM or whatever input. So there we have it. Right. So I'll turn this off now. Now here we are. The charge controller is now installed, and these little green cases are actually DIN rail mounting, so of course it's mounted on the DIN rail I've installed here. And man, I absolutely love DIN rail. It's been a watershed for me, you know. I didn't really know whether I could get any DIN rail. I didn't know how easy it was to get, and I always thought it was expensive. Then I did a search on Trade Me, and it's like $12. I get 2 like 1 meter lengths of it, and it's like, now I can just use it for everything. You know, without DIN rail, mounting things is a lot more complicated and a lot more time consuming. So now that I'm able to mount things, then I do a lot more mounting of things, if that makes any sense. So anyway, DIN rail. So there we are. It's on the DIN rail. And this relay was not a DIN rail mounting thing. It had a bracket though that could take screws or bolts, and there it is. It's screwed on. So all I had to do was make up a little cable here using a piece of old True Rip lighting flex. Some people claim that you can't use this for lighting. Well, there's millions of lights out there that use it. But I'm not using it, of course, for any kind of mains voltage. I'm using it as the control voltage for this relay, which is, of course, about 24 volts nominal. Alright, what else is there to show on here? Ah, yes, the fuse. I realised I needed a fuse, and so I implemented that by just using one of these blade fuses and a couple of, quick connect spade connectors to connect onto there, as I've done in so many situations before. Although today I got a bit cunning, I used a second-hand one that had a short length of wire on it, so it could just hang off the end of that screw terminal there. And this one here needed insulation, which it didn't have, so I made it out of one of those plug protectors that you get on the pins of appliances. Well, over here you do, of course, different pattern for different countries, but it fitted that terminal nicely, and it's got the sort of the knobbly bits in the inside that actually grip it, so that was pretty cool. So it's fused, and admittedly that's a 10 amp fuse, which is way overkill, and it should be a 5, but the last 5 amp blade fuse I had was a really cheap, made in the PRC job, and it actually fell apart from the pressure of inserting the spades. Pretty shocking. Yeah. Right, well now I can say about the why we've got this little link here, and we've made the return of this relay here separate to the main return negative there. Well, that's so in the future, which is going to be in the future, because I've had enough of Shed B for now. I'm sure you've had enough of Shed B. This is pretty much me walking away from Shed B for quite some time, really, in terms of this 24 volt system. You know, maybe we'll just go off subject to it. Maybe I might come down here and fiddle around with this 12 volt system that's in here, but no, not right now, eh? Not right now. Shall we be mucking too much more with this for a while? So, anyway, in the future, the idea of this is so that rather than connecting the main relay up back to the negative directly, I can feed it through some kind of dusk sensor. So the idea being, when it gets dark at night, this relay will disconnect. Now, it doesn't have to do that because there's already a blocking diode at the other end, so that's not really an issue in itself. The issue is that a relay this size does use quite a few mils of current, and being turned on all night to receive current from solar panels that are never going to give it any is actually a waste of power. I mean, it's one of the things, it's all very well in summer, but when you go into the darker seasons, it's really important to minimise all your parasitical draws. You just don't want these extra bits and pieces just consuming 100 mils there and 100 mils there. Pretty soon it's an amp that's just being wasted. I mean, inverters are bad enough like this. I mean, this thing draws 600 milliamps while it's switched on. I mean, this relay easily 100 milliamps. Just don't need extra things that don't need to be on. So I'll build a dust sensor circuit that can switch there, and I decided to make it the return lead, the negative lead being the one that I'll switch, because that way I can use an open collector type arrangement with the transistor to switch it. So there we go. That's why we've got the link there. I just thought I'd do this now so that in the future I don't have to rip this all off and change it internally, although it would be easy enough to do. So there's my rambles, and now I get to the good stuff, which is basically commissioning this new charge controller by flipping the breaker, and we'll see what happens. So will it blow up? Here we go. No, and almost nothing happens. You couldn't hear the relay go ka-chunk because the breaker ka-chunk masks the sound of the relay. But this LED here means that this relay is now active. It's on. So any spare current coming from the other shed will now be being routed through to the battery. But there won't be a hell of a lot because, again, it's a really piss poor day for solar. In fact, it's actually raining. I was going to gay lawn today after doing this, but that is not going to be possible anymore. So that's basically the guts, really. That's it. That's Shed B. That's what I've done. Here's my balancing controllers, and yeah, I was going to show you this all in motion on a sunny day, but I can't today, obviously. But as you can see, it's still sitting pretty balanced. Yeah, 0.1 volt difference, and I say that there is a slight discrepancy in these meters. So we heated up some pizza in the morning and stuff on this shitty day. So it's all working very, very well. I'm really pleased with it. It's just keeping the batteries in check. You know, it's I don't know. When these controllers are turning on and off and doing their PWM, and these LEDs are flashing and these voltmeters are jumping up and down and stuff, it's almost like a ballet of fucking, I don't know, electronics. It's actually just quite, I don't know, it's quite trippy just to watch it, you know. Well, you probably don't know, and you know, but hey, this was not going to be a ramble. I've been making too many rambly solar videos lately. But there won't be many more of these B-shed ones because the B-shed now is basically done. I've just got to wait for a sunny day to make sure this is all working. But the lash up was working, and so this should work. The only issue I may have is the capacitance may not be as big as it should be. I'm hoping 3,300 microfarads is more than enough. I mean, it seems a lot, but to say in the lash up I did have 13,000 mickeys there, so... well, we'll see, won't we? And that's day 320. Well, there's still time for me to do other things today, but, well, I think this video is going to be long enough already. So I think we'll leave it here. This is the good stuff, really. This is the good stuff. So I'll just do a quick recap. Okay, so we've got 70 watts of panels coming in through these transistors as diodes through the current boost circuit, 70 watts each side, of course, left and right, going through to my battery bank down there. That charge controller's for the 12 volt one, so ignore that. And that's doing its thing all hunky-dory. And then we've got a second, which is basically an independent system that works in conjunction, but it's independent. So we've got spare current coming from the real-time diversion controller circuit from shed A, from its larger 24-volt system. Oh, I forgot to say. Okay, so 70 watts of panels each side, so 140 in total, but 70 for the high and low sides each. And plus the other panels, which is a 50-watt crystalline panels and 15 watt amorphous panels go directly through the charge controllers. Okay, so that's all the solar on there. So what does that add up to? 70 plus 50, that's 120, and then plus 15 for the amorphous, so that's 135 watts per 12 volt section, so 270 watts in total. Okay, and then over here we've got a hell of a lot. I mean, I don't know how much actually, because some of those panels are broken panels that are fixed and this and that, but there's one completely good 200 watt panel and two 100 watt panels in series, plus the two broken 195 watt panels contributing as well. So yeah, that's quite a lot of watts. I'm not even going to try and add it up, because like I say, the broken panels, it's a bit of a crapshoot there. And when it's charged up the other battery bank, of course, that current becomes available on this wire. So this part of the system just, of course, lets it go through until the voltage reaches 27 odd volts, and then it'll cut it off. And it'll stay cut off basically for the rest of the day if nothing's being used, because these controllers then will just take over and do the finishing charge. However, if one comes in the middle of the day and goes, oh, I think I might want to heat up a pie or grill an omelette or something like that, and uses the oven or any other heavy energy appliance that we may connect to this, it's just the oven at the moment, then that will drop the voltage down below, say 26 volts, and this will kick back on again, and it'll keep pumping charge through while the oven's on, and for a bit longer until it reaches that 27 again. So that's what it's for, that's what it does, and I think it's pretty cool, you know. I think that's pretty cool. Good use of an on-off controller, I think, in that situation. So there we go, Shed B system. Yay. Yay. I think I might have to do some different things in the coming days. It's just not solar power or not electronics, because we think about one thing for too long, I don't think it's good for your brain, eh? The summer solstice is coming, and there is some music to be done, so I guess that's what I'll be working on now. That'll become my priority. And of course there's always Radio Foxton, of course. But there we have it. Day 320 off the grid.